Hi, it's Amy with the Hag Reads. I am here with one book today. A book that I was actually really looking forward to. I heard about it well before it came out from somebody on BookTube, and it just sounded very intriguing. But I do want to mention that I'm letting my hair grow out, or at least I'm thinking about it. So, it's wet right now, and it's still kind of puffy and crazy. What happens is, it gets long enough that it kind of looks like the human version of a Lego hair. Like I could just pop that off and put some different hair on. And then it will just look like shit. And I look bad in hats and headscarves, and I have tried a bunch of different things, and I think I look ridiculous. So I thought I would just come right out and tell you I'm attempting to let my hair grow out. So it's just gonna look weird and crazy in all the videos. I get this crazy. My hair is really thick, so it does weird swoopy things, and there's nothing I can do about that. And I look terrible in hats, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do about it, but I'm aware that my hair doesn't look very good, so just so that you're aware that I'm aware. So the book today is The Final Girls by Riley, I can't read that, Seger? Hold on, I'll find out. It looks like Sager. It's an A. S-A-G-E-R. So Riley Sager. I think probably a lot of people are familiar with this because it's had a lot of talk on BookTube since it came out. And it's taken me this long to get it from the library. When I signed up the first time I heard about it, it was still not published, but there was already a waiting list on my library, and I was like 112. And just before I got notified that the book was available for me to pick up, I saw that I was like 2 or 3 out of 214. So there were a lot of people waiting for this book. And so I read it as soon as it came in, because normally I would, a new book, you get 7 days. But I read it the first day that I got it from the library, so it's never going to appear in a library haul. I'm sorry. Because I know other people are waiting for it. And when there's that many people waiting, I do not like to hold a book for the full rental period or for the full checkout period, even if it's 7 days, because I know there are other people who would really like to read it. And because I can read a book in a day if I want to. The Final Girls, let's see how many pages was in this. It wasn't terribly long. So 342 pages. I read it kind of overnight. I read it in the evening until I fell asleep, and then I picked it up the next morning and finished it off. So in 2 sittings, I would say probably less than 6 hours, I finished it off. The main character, the narrator for this, is Quincy Carpenter, who is the third in a series of 3 girls who survived a kind of slasher movie massacre. Not the same massacre, but like there was a girl maybe 10 years before her, and then a girl, like 5 years after her, and then her. And it has been 10 years since her specific event. Let's see here. So it's kind of an infamous group of of girls who have been dubbed Final Girls by the press. Having survived these massacres, the only, surviving member of a large group of people that were slaughtered by a single killer. Lisa was the first girl, and the oldest of the 3, and she survived. Let's see, did I write down? So Lisa, sorority, all of her sorority sisters were killed. The second girl is Samantha, who survived a hotel massacre. And then there's Quincy, who, her incident occurred at a cabin, a birthday party of a friend. And all of her friends were slaughtered. And she has amnesia and doesn't really remember her event. although it's poked and prodded at in the first part of the novel quite a bit, as to whether or not she really has amnesia. And there's a definite sense that she knows something that she's not telling. And that's all I'll say about that, because to go any further into it kind of gives away plot points. But there is kind of a sense that that it's not 100% honest about her amnesia. And she's dealing with her tragedy and all of the backlash and trying to live a normal life through Xanax and denial. She received a substantial settlement after the incident because the killer had escaped from an asylum, or a treatment facility. And so she was financially, like, she owned a condo. She lives in New York, or, an apartment of some sort. So, and where press would not be able to approach her front door. They could, like, hang out outside the building, but they couldn't, like, directly get to her. And then, so the first girl, Lisa, dealt with her tragedy, but kind of making it public. She wrote a book, and she was working with disadvantaged youth, and she had reached out to both Samantha and Quincy to try and help them, deal with being final girls. And Samantha didn't deal with her issues at all. She basically disappeared off the face of the planet, wants nothing to do with the press, doesn't want to be a role model, she just wants to be left alone. And then Quincy, who's really trying to lead a normal life. She's living with her boyfriend, who may be her fiance. She has, like, a baking blog type of thing where she takes pictures, and so she's financially well off enough that her boyfriend is an attorney, and I think he's a public defender, which is interesting because he's defending the type of person that assaulted her. And they don't really deal with that in the book at all. Like, they don't talk about their relationship. Seems pretty solid at the start of the book. And so what spurs everything into motion here. Oh, and then there's one more character I want to mention, which is Cooper, which is the cop who rescued Quincy just as she was about to be slaughtered. That's how they describe it in the book. And so they have kind of an ongoing relationship, and he will show up kind of out of the blue, and they'll meet at a designated coffee shop, and, it seems like he's, trying to just support her through her difficult time, because she really is just existing through Xanax, boxed wine, and completely denying that anything bad has ever happened to her. But what kicks off the drama for this book is that the first final girl, Lisa, is found dead in her apartment, and initially it is thought that it's a suicide. And while Quincy wasn't close with her, she's having a hard time dealing with that somebody who seemed so interested in helping others because of her tragedy would suddenly commit suicide. And then almost immediately thereafter, Samantha shows up in front of her building, and then the press, publishes a picture of them together just after the suicide. And so the media frenzy picks up again, and Samantha wants her to, the premise that she gave was trying to, support each other during this tragedy. But there's other things going on. And so this is ultimately, it's what spurs Samantha and Quincy towards the road of discovering the root of, what Quincy can't remember. And I really did enjoy this book a lot. But I felt like the character Quincy, because she just absolutely refused to deal with what she couldn't remember. She wasn't trying to remember it at all. She just really And I was surprised that the character Samantha, as she's portrayed initially, you know, is so kind of twisting the knife a little bit on trying to dig into her past when the Samantha character herself had disappeared from the public eye for so long. Um, but Lisa doesn't really, or Quincy doesn't really question what she's doing. She's just along for the ride and taking all this Xanax and letting Samantha kind of goad her into doing things uh, that she wouldn't normally do. And the boyfriend was absent a lot because of his work. And so the dynamic between the two of them quickly becomes clearly unhealthy. And I think that's all I can say, because more than that would give away major plot points and twists. And that really is the point of this book. As much as I love this, I would never own it, because it's not the kind of book that you could go back to once that you get past the mystery on this. You know everything there is to know. I will say that I kind of had an inkling of what the ending was going to be, and I was wrong. But I will say it was because I didn't pay close enough attention to some things that were hinted at very early in the book, and looking at the true motivations of why a couple of people were doing the things they were doing. And if I had paid better attention, like when I figured out, or when it was revealed, everything, I was like, oh. And so it did surprise me, and that's actually fairly rare anymore. I usually figure it out well before the end, and I did think I had it figured out, but I didn't. So I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It had problems. There were definitely things about it I didn't like, but it entertained me. I said I read it in 2 days, and I had intended to do that simply because so many people are waiting in line after me at the library for the book. But also because once I had reached the halfway point, I was like, I have to know more. I just, it was that sense of I can't stop reading. So, if you're into this kind of thing, I know there's also a movie called The Final Girls, which I have seen advertised on a couple of other horror movies, but it's nothing like this book. It's basically the people who love horror movies, they managed to get into a horror movie, and they're trying to survive by kind of knowing the storyline and trying to stick with the final girl so they can come out of it alive. And it's kind of it's kind of a parody of Friday the 13th, Halloween, those kind of movies. But my library does not have it, and you can't rent it on Amazon. So I would have to buy it, and I don't know that it's the kind of movie that I could watch over and over again. But if you have access to it anywhere, it's not at all like the book, but it is the same name, and I thought it looked kind of funny as a spoof or a parody of the slasher film genre. That is all I have for today. If you watched to the end, thank you so much. Happy whatever time of day it is for you, and I will see you again soon. Bye!